Guys,
Kenalin.
mesti gercep nih.
Baru, Men's Biore Bright Expert. Foam lembut dengan 5 kali vitamin B3. Cepat bersihkan kulit kusam dan noda hitam. Muka auto cerah. Men's Biore Bright Expert.
Search. Let's see if we have imported icons at the top. We have. Let's also give it a class name equal to W-5, H-5, and you know it, resize mode of contain. There we go. Now we can see the search icon. For now, we can leave it as it is, and later on, once we implement the search logic, we can add additional stuff to this search input. For now, let's go below it, and let's continue with our homepage. Below the search input, we'll create another view, and this will be for. So let's remove the existing assets folder, download your React Native and Expo application, and learn as a beginner. So let's start building the app and put everything into practice. Now that you know how to create navigate yes, so soon we have already done when by the scale step custom. Let's quickly go back, set up process as you can see, and sign in screen free by theme screen. For example, back in the theme, you can and click. So in the description, see that we have a lot of fonts, assets folder, find a complete app them. So in In the description down below, you'll also be able dot search. Use font with Tailwind CSS like class names. Rather, we want to multiply this topping, removing the backing applied. Press R in the content applying to the string and theme stuff. Back in the theme, every time to 6 to to 2 and copy it. Then, back in the theme, you can say extend and select a specific screen, link down in the description, and then you can follow along and build your Tailwind theme setup. The way you would go about doing that is you can select a specific screen, like we have this one right here, and then you can see all the colors that we have. For example, this 161622, and copy it. Then, back in the theme, you can say extend, colors, and you can also add primary, and you can say hash and paste that color. So now every time that you refer to this color, you don't have to repeat 161622. Rather, you can say text primary. We'll also use a couple of other colors and font families within this video. So in the README down below, you can copy the final Tailwind config and paste it here. As you can see, there's in this video. So in the README down below, you can copy the final
tailoring config, and paste it here. As you can see, there's basically 10 colors, and then we're also mentioning some font families to make our text look better. Now that we have these font families, we have to manually import all of them. So in the description down below, you'll also be able to find a complete assets folder. So let's remove the existing assets folder, download and unzip the one from the description, and then simply paste it right here in the root of your directory. You'll be able to see that we have a lot of fonts, icons, images, then simply paste it. So let's remove the existing assets folder, download and unzip the one from the description, and then simply paste it right here. Here in the root of your directory. You'll be able to see that we have a lot of fonts, icons, images, and more. And to make your life importing those assets a bit easier, I have also created a constants folder, which you can find somewhere near the assets. You can also download it, unzip it, and paste it right here. If you check it out, this will simply import all of the files from the asset. Also download it, unzip it easier. I have also created a constants folder, which you can find somewhere near the assets. You can also download it, unzip it, and paste it right here. If you check it out, this will simply import all of the files from the assets and then export them so we can import them in an easier manner. With that in mind, we have to put those fonts to use. So we can go to layout. Within the layout, we'll have to load all of those fonts in. That's a bit different from what we do in Next.js, but it's not that hard. We can use the special hook by importing it first, called use fonts, coming from expo font. Once we have it, we can use it as we would use any typical hook by saying const fonts loaded is the first parameter, and then the error, if they don't load correctly, is the second one. And we can call it by using the use fonts and passing in an object of all of the fonts that we want to use. The way it works is you first give it a string where you specify the name of the font, such as Poppins Black, and then you require the link to where that font is saved. For example, /assets /fonts /poppins -black.ttf. And we have to repeat this for every font that we use. And you also have to make sure that you spell it correctly. The B in the black right here is capitalized. So make sure to do it like that. And just to save you all the trouble of writing it out and making a couple of typos along the way, this complete fonts loaded will be in the README down below. So simply copy it and override it here. As you can see, we're basically just loading in the fonts. Now, the next thing we can do is introduce a use effect. We already know what a use effect is for, right? It allows us to perform some actions while the page, or in this case, the screen, is loading. So let's create a new use effect hook, provided a callback function, and a dependency array. And within that dependency array, we can say fonts loaded, meaning recall this function whenever fonts loaded change or whenever there's an error. And then we can say if there's an error, then throw that error. And if fonts loaded, then we want to call something known as a splash screen. And this splash screen is coming from expo router. So let's import it right here, splash screen. And there's a special method on the splash screen called hide async, which looks like this. If you hover over it, it's going to give you more information. It basically hides the native splash screen immediately. But before you use it, ensure that your app has all the content ready to display when you hide the splash screen, or you're going to see a blank screen instead. But if our fonts are loaded, we should be good to go. Next, if for some reason our fonts haven't loaded yet, so if no fonts loaded, then we can return null, meaning we won't show anything. And we can also add end, there's no error. So if the fonts haven't loaded and there's no error, something must have gotten wrong, so we're going to return null. And we also have to import use effect from React. So if we do that, we should be good to go. Also, at the top, we can add a special directive, also by using a splash screen, called splash screen .prevent auto hide async. This will prevent the splash screen from auto hiding before asset loading is complete. So now that we have loaded our fonts, let's navigate over to our index, and let's try to use it within our Aura app. We can do that by saying font dash, and automatically you can see how Tailwind CSS IntelliSense gives us different options that we can choose, such as P, let's do maybe P black, and save it. And automatically you can see how our app just gets a lot more character. And it will look much, much better once we implement this entire phenomenal design and all of the other screens that I prepared for you. So now that we know how to spin up a React Native application, we know how to do routing, and we have styles and fonts set up, we can actually create the file and folder structure of our application. We can do that by first creating a new folder, which will be within parentheses, folder structure of our async. The reason our font also so we're going to called autotext. You can see how now the thing we can actually create the file and folder structure of our application. We can do that by first creating a new folder, which will be within parentheses. And we will call it auth, like this. Once again, this is the same as within Next.js. If you put a folder within parentheses, it's considered a route group, allowing you to add additional pages or screens within it with a special layout. So within this auth, we can also create a new _layout.jsx file. And within it, we can run rnfe, which is a React Native functional export component like this. We can rename it to something like auth layout, so it makes more sense. Now, what is the reason why we're going to create a separate layout for the auth? Well, if you think about it, only the auth screens and the onboarding won't have those tabs at the bottom, the navigation, right? If you see all the home screens right here, they have the home, create, profile, and so on, but our auth screens don't have that, which is exactly why we're going to use a separate layout. Now that we have the layout for our auth routes, let's go ahead and create them. The first auth route will be signin.jsx. And we can also run rnfe and simply put it right here and rename it to sign in. And did I say route? I meant screen. We're creating screens here. So let's create a sign-up.jsx screen as well and run rnfe and rename it to sign up. There we go. So now our routes for the auth are good. And we also have to do a second route group, also within parentheses, called tabs. Within tabs, we're going to create a new custom layout.jsx where we can run rnfe and rename it to tabs layout. Soon enough, we'll implement that bottom bar that allows us to switch between all the pages within the tabs folder. And which pages are those, or which screens, should I say? The first one is the bookmark.jsx, where we can also run rnfe and rename it to bookmark with a capital B. And keep in mind, we're just creating the structure right now to make our life easier later on. Then we're going to create a create.jsx, where we can also run rnfe. This will be to create and add videos to our platform. We can create a home.jsx and run rnfe. And finally, we can create a profile. And finally, the profile will also be under the tabs category, so we can pull the profile we have created before into the tabs folder. Finally, we'll have one more page, which will be within its own folder called search. And here, we're going to use another concept coming directly from Next.js. It's called a dynamic route. So let's create a new file and put it within square brackets and call it query.jsx. This will allow us to rename the page or get the query information for the specific search our user is trying to do. There, we can also run rnfe and rename it to search. Great. Now, the majority of our file and folder structure has been set up, but we have no way of navigating between those routes. So let's go to tabs. Has been set up. Layout. Now screen as well. and run our, and we also have to do a second route group. Also out. Soon enough, we'll implement that bottom bar that allows us to switch between all the pages within the tabs folder. And which pages are those, or which screens should I say? The first one is the bookmark.jsx, where we can also run RN life easier later on. Then we're going to create a create.jsx, where we can also run a home RNFE. This will be to create and add videos to our platform. We can create a home.jsx and run RNFE. And finally, we can create a profile. And finally, the profile will also be under the tabs category, so we can pull the profile we have created before into the tabs folder. Finally, we'll have one more page, which will be within its own folder called search. And here, we're going to use another concept coming directly from Next.js. It's called a dynamic route. So let's create a new file and put it within square brackets and call it query.jsx. This will allow us to rename the page or get the query information for the specific search our user is trying to do. There, we can also run RNFE and rename it to search. Great. Now, the majority of our file and folder structure has been set up, but we have no way of navigating between those routes. So let's go to tabs and tab into the layout. Here, we'll create this bottom part. That will allow us then to navigate between all of the other pages within our app. So to see this tabs layout, which we'll create soon, we can navigate to our index.jsx and modify this link that navigates to profile and make it go to something like home. So we can say go to home. And now if we click on it, you can see that now we have the tabs right here. Here, tabs folder, and the tabs layout, which means that we are ready to start creating our tabs. So to get started, let's import tabs from Expo Router by saying import tabs, and we'll also use redirect later on from expo-router. We can then create just an empty React fragment with which we'll wrap everything and then render the tabs component like so. Within the tabs component, we'll also have a tabs.screen component, which will be self-closing. And to it, we can give a property of name is equal to home. And immediately, you can see that we have 4 different things at the bottom: home, create, profile, and bookmark. And these are the exact files that we have created. This is pretty cool, right? But right now they're just upside down triangles. What we can do is, of course, modify them a bit. So I'm going to give it some additional options, which is an object that has a title of uppercase home like this. We can also choose whether a header is shown on that route. So we can say false in this case. And we can modify the tab bar icon, which will be a callback function inside of which we can destructure the color and the focus state and return the icon that we want to show. Make sure to use just parentheses here and not open a function block. Within here, we can return a tab icon, which is a new component which we'll create. So right here, let's say const tab icon is a React functional component that returns, well, for now we can return just a view. View is like a div, we'll use it quite often. And within that view, we can render an image. And this image will come directly from React Native. Once again, very similar to Next.js if you're used to that. This image will accept a source, which we can pass into the tab icon functional component. So we can destructure some things like the icon, the color, the name, and the focus state. That way, we now know what we need to pass. So right here below, we can render the tab icon, self-closing, and to it, pass the icon. And now we need to import the icons we have created before within our constants. So we can say import icons coming from ... constants. And if we scroll down, we can now use the icons.home. This is the home icon specifically. We also have the color coming directly from the callback function. We have the name equal to home, and we have the focus state, which we'll simply pass over. Focused is equal to focused. This should give us everything we need to now start rendering our tab icon, which needs its image. So let's simply render the icon as the source of that image. And already you can see a huge home icon at the bottom. Let's style it a bit by using the resize mode equal to contain. This is a bit different, but of course we can just read the docs of React Native image and understand which props does it accept. Tint color is another property to which we can pass the color coming from props, and the class name using native wind, not tailwind, of W-6 and H-6 as well. And now we have a beautiful looking home icon at the bottom. Right below the image, we can also render the text, and that text will render the name. Now you can see two different names right here, so let's style it a bit by giving it a class name equal to, and we want to modify the state depending on whether it's focused or not. So I'm going to open a dynamic template string and say if it's focused, then apply a font of P semi-bold, and P stands for Poppins, which is the name of the font, else apply a font of P regular, like this. I was almost about to say regular, but no, it's Poppins regular. So then we can do a text-XS right here to make it smaller. But now we can see the home 2 times. So we need to modify our options in the tab screen a bit more. And we can do that by modifying the tabs in general. So right here, we can pass additional screen options equal to an object where we can say tab bar show label will be set to false. And now we have only our specific label that we chose. Also, I can see it's not centered properly. So let's go into this view and give it a class name of items-center, justify-center, and a gap of 2 to create some space. There we go. That's better. Next, let's just copy this tab screen and duplicate it 3 more times. 1, 2, 3. And that way we can make it work for all of the other icons or screens by changing the name to bookmark, changing the title to bookmark with a capital B. We can also change the icon to icons.bookmark and change the name to bookmark. You get the idea, right? If we save it, you're going to get an error because we still have some duplicate screens. So before we can see anything, we'll have to modify all of them. And I do believe that my bookmark was supposed to be a second screen. So I'm just going to copy it and move it over to the second place right here after the home. So we have home, we have bookmark, and the third one on our list is going to be create, allowing us to add new videos to the platform. So name create, title create, icons.plus, and name is going to be create. And the last one of our tab screen will be profile. So the name is profile, title is profile, icons.profile, and name is profile. If we save it, the error is gone. We can re-navigate to the homepage, and you can see 4 of these beautiful tabs at the bottom, which, if you click on them, will navigate to different pages. This is great. They change the focus state, and if you pay close attention at the top, you can see that the text within the screen changes. This is great. So simple and so similar to what we're used to. Let's also apply some additional class names to tabs in general by modifying the screen options and giving it a tab bar active tint color, which we can put something like, let's do hash FFA001. This one matches our theme a bit more. We can also do a tab bar inactive tint color, and we can make it something like hash CDCDE0. We can also modify the tab bar style, which is an object, where we can change the background color to something like hash 161622, which if you remember is our primary color. And yes, even though it is in the Tailwind config, and we can use it just as a color primary, we're here within an object, passing to the screen options, so we still have to type it out manually, just in this case. We also can set up the border top width to something like 1. I found that to work the best. And also border top color to something like hash 232533. And set the height to something like 84 pixels. And now we have this modern looking dark tabs bar, but we cannot see the name of our tabs. And that's because we have to go to our text and add a special property of style. Color is set to the color that we're passing from the props. In this case, that'll be white. So now you can see this beautiful home, bookmark, create, and so on, and we can nicely navigate between them. And it's not just about changing the color in the tabs bar. It's about actually navigating to different screens of our application, which soon enough will look exactly like it looks right now on Figma. This is a beautiful onboarding design, and I think I like this onboarding screen the most. It is visually the most pleasing. So let's get started with that, as it's our first screen anyway. And of course, the screen just looks good, doesn't yet implement any functionality, but as you know, you're building a full stack application. So after we're done with creating the onboarding screen, after you kind of feel a bit more comfortable working within a React Native, mobile native environment, you'll be able to dive into the sign up and sign in screens where we'll immediately start implementing the logic. So let's get started with the onboarding screen. You can see our designer here has pulled out specific assets that we can use within the application. I have already provided these to you within the assets, but in case you're wondering how we can use them and how we can download them yourself, you can just select them and then scroll down and click export. That way you'll have those assets. Also, you can see that our Gray designer has also provided us with different colors to implement the gradient looking button. With that said, let's start working on our onboarding screen, which is our index.jsx. And you can navigate to it on your phone by simply clicking the index on top left, or this is crazy, you can use your device's native capabilities. Like on iOS, you can swipe from the left side of the screen and that will also perform the same action. That's crazy. I mean, the power you get with developing in React Native is so good because you can develop native mobile applications with native functionalities for both Android and iOS while writing code that looks and feels like React and Next.js. I think you can see my enthusiasm, and I hope you share it with me while you're learning how to develop React Native applications. With that said, let's not use the view right here. Rather, let's use something that you learned about in the crash course part of this course. So you can select them and then scroll down and click export. That way you'll have those assets. Also, you can see that our Gray designer has also provided us with different colors to implement the gradient looking button. With that said, let's start working on our onboarding screen, which is our index.jsx. And you can navigate to it on your phone by simply clicking the index on top left, or this is crazy, you can use your device's native capabilities. Like on iOS, you can swipe from the left side of the screen and that will also perform the same action. That's crazy. I mean, the power you get with developing in React Native is so good because you can develop native mobile applications with native functionalities for both Android and iOS while writing code that looks and feels like React and Next.js. I think you can see my enthusiasm, and I hope you share it with me while you're learning how to develop React Native applications. With that said, let's not use the view right here. Rather, let's use something that you learned about in the crash course part of this course, and that is safe area view. Whenever you have kind of the most outside view, that should be a safe area view because it ensures that our content is visible on all different devices. And of course, we have to import it at the top by saying import safe area view, and it's going to come from a package react-native-safe area context like this. It will simply ensure that our content doesn't overlap with a status bar, a bottom bar, or anything like that, both on iOS, Android, and all other types of devices. Let's give it a class name equal to bg primary and h-full for full height, and that will immediately turn our device black. Next, we can wrap everything within the safe area view. We're going to also render a scroll view. This is coming directly from React Native, and we can give it a content container style equal to height of 100%. So the whole screen should be scrollable. The reason why we implement this is because the height of our content might be larger than what some smaller devices support, so they might need to be able to scroll up and down to see it fully. Now that we have the scroll view, we can implement the view within it, like a div, and give it some class names, such as w-full for full width, justify-center, items-center, h-full for full height, and padding x of 4 for some padding horizontal. This is just to center everything in the middle of the screen. Next, we can render an image, also coming from React Native. We already know what kind of properties does it have, like source, equal to, and we once again have to import the images at the top by saying import images from /constants. And we can now use the images.logo. And of course, you have to spell constants properly. There we go. Aura at the top. This looks great. Let's also give it a class name equal to w-130 pixels and h-84 pixels, which makes it look bad, but we can give it a resize mode equal to contain, which will contain it within those width and height, essentially making it a bit smaller. Right below this image, we'll render a second image, which will also be self-closing with a source equal to images.cards. It will have a class name equal to max-w-380 pixels, w-full, and h- about 300 pixels. Also, let me fix this typo right here. And don't forget, we also have to give it a resize mode equal to contain. If we save it, this is looking much closer to what we have on the final design. But of course, now is the time that we add a couple of text elements and the button. So let's create a view for that. Still within the same view below the image, we can create a new view with a class name equal to relative, margin top of 5, and give it our first text element with a class name equal to text-3xl to make it very big, text-white, and font-bold, as well as text-center to center it in the middle of the screen. Here, we can say something like discover endless possibilities with, and then within it, we can render another piece of text. It's like having a span within a p tag that will say Aura, which is our app name, and we can give it a special class name of text-secondary-200. And this is the first time we're using one of our special theme colors we have added within our Tailwind config. There we go. That's looking good. Let's also create a space right here to divide Aura from width. That's looking much better. And you see how this Aura in the design has this special underline? Well, let's add that. Moving below both of the texts, we can create a new image, which will have a source equal to images.path with a class name equal to w-136 pixels. I found that value to work the best, and h-15 pixels for the height. We're going to also make it absolute, as we need to absolutely position it below that Aura text, and give it a -bottom-2 and -right-8 to position it just right. Let's also give it a resize mode equal to contain. There we go. That's much better. Now we can go below the image and below the view and render another piece of text that will say something like where creativity meets innovation. And no, this was not created by ChatGPT. I thought of this myself, for sure. Embark on a journey of limitless exploration with Aura. I mean, who wouldn't use the app once you read this text? Let's give it some class names, such as text-sm, font-pregular, which is P regular, text-gray-100, so we can actually see it, margin top of 7 to divide a bit from the top, and text-center to center it vertically. This is looking great. And finally, let's create our first custom component of the day, which is going to be our button. So to do that, we go to our File Explorer and create a new folder called Components. Within Components, we can create a new file called custom button.jsx. And there we can run rnfe to quickly spin up our custom button. And now that we have our custom button, we can go back to our index.jsx. Right below the text, we can start typing custom button and automatically import it from components. If we save it, you won't be able to see anything. That's because it's showing dark text on dark background. But this is our sign to dive into the custom button and start implementing it. First things first, it's not technically a button. It's something known as a touchable opacity, as we have learned before, but now you get a chance to put your skills to the test, to actually use what you learned in a real app. So let's import the touchable opacity coming from React Native, and instead of wrapping everything with a view, let's wrap it with a touchable opacity component. And don't forget to import the text, we'll still need it. We still cannot see anything, so let's give it some classes. I'm going to say class name is equal to, and I'm going to make it a dynamic template string of bg secondary. There we go. That's already better. At least we can see something. We can make it a rounded -xl, which will round the corners, and give it a min-h of 62 pixels for the height. We can also make it justify center and items center, and this is already looking a bit better. Let's style the text element within it by giving it a class name equal to text-primary, font-p semi-bold, text-lg to make it a bit larger, and within it, we can render whatever we want to say. So what we can do is pass some special props to our custom button to truly make it a custom reusable component. We can pass some props like the title, because every time we use this custom button, we don't want it to say custom button. We want it to say something like continue with email in this case. We can also pass a handle press, not handle click, handle press in this case, which will be a callback function. For now, we can leave it empty. And we can also pass container styles, which are some additional styles we can pass, such as w-full and margin top of 7. So if we go back, let's put all of these props to use by first destructuring them. We can destructure the title, the handle press, the container styles, and in some cases, we might also have text styles as well as is loading property. We'll have it when submitting the video. So now we can expand our touchable opacity, and we can also give it the onPress handler, which will be equal to handle press, which we're passing as a prop. We can also modify the active opacity to something like 0.7. I think looks best. This is the opacity of the button once you press it. And we can apply the container styles right within our other styles, which will make it fit the full width of the screen. And if is loading, we can apply the opacity of 50 to make it seem like you cannot click it. That's going to look something like this. And also, we can give it a disabled state if we're loading, which is not happening right now, so it looks good. Next, let's also make this dynamic template string the class names for the text element, which is going to look something like this if we properly close it. And we can also use the text styles right here if we're passing any. And most importantly, we can make this text render the title, which is coming dynamically from the index page where we're calling this custom component. And there we have it. We have our button. The last thing we need below the scroll view will be a component called status bar. It's a self-closing component, which we can import from expo status bar right at the top. And it will have a background color of #161622 and a style of light. Do you see what happened when I added that? Let me comment it out and bring it back. Basically, since our app is in dark mode, it also darkened the status bar and gave it a style of light. So now you can see your battery percentage, clock, and all the other stuff at the top as well. This is very useful in case you want to show it or hide it within your application. One thing that I've noticed recently is that some apps purposefully show it because they want you to have all that information, but some apps sneakily hide it, so you get lost in time and spend more time on the app. I noticed that TikTok actually hides all the information and shows you just the videos, so you lose the sense of time and you keep scrolling. But now you see the other side of that and you learn how to implement it so that potentially you can trap your users within the app, or you can be good in them and give them all the information they need. In this case, we'll be the good guys. With that in mind, the last thing we need to do to finalize our onboarding is actually provide our users with a way to exit it, meaning to go to the next screen. So for the first time, we're going to use the router. Right at the top, coming from Expo Router, we can import two things, the redirect component, as well as the router itself. In this case, we don't have to declare it as a hook. Rather, the only thing we have to say is router.push. And we're pushing to /sign-in, as that's the next component we want to work on. And believe it or not, that's it for our onboarding screen. Now, there's just one small thing I noticed, and that is that back here in our view, instead of age full, we can give it age dash and then about 85 VH. This will actually help us center the content in the middle of the screen, and we can even make it min dash age. So this is going to be the min height of the screen, and now it's nicely centered. With that done, I want you to take your phone in your hand, min height of the screen, center the content in the middle of the screen, and we can even make it min 85 V. Back here in our view, instead of age full, we can give it age dash and then about 85 VH. This will actually help us center the content in the middle of the screen, and we can even make it min dash H. So this is going to be the min height of the screen, and now it's nicely centered. With that done, I want you to take your phone in your hand and admire what you have done. Like, you can even move your thumb up and down and you'll see it will nicely scroll. You can kind of hover over the button to see how the touchable opacity changes, and you get all of the powers of developing native mobile application with a code that, let's be honest, feels like you're writing a web app. With that in mind, this looks great to me. Let's just continue with our email and let's start implementing our auth layout and then both of our sign in and sign up screens. Phenomenal work so far. Let's close all of the currently open